Next, from Edwardsville, we speak with former Representative Dwight Kay and hear his comments about the discontent that has led so many in the House of Representatives to say they will not again seek re-election. We also get his business insights into economic conditions in the Metro East. This runs about 18 minutes. Dwight Kay, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel. It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk to you on camera. And before we go further, let me just mention you're a member of the Illinois Channel Board of Directors, so we'll lay that out there.
But well, thank you.
The reason we wanted to catch up, you, as the viewers may not know, you are a businessman. We're actually here in your office down in Edwardsville. You obviously have had the background of working in the Illinois legislature, so you straddle the fence between both the business world and what's going on in public policy. One of the things, before we get into the business issues, there have been so many members of the Illinois House of Representatives where you served that have announced that they're just not going to be running again. What do you make of that?
Well, first I would just have to be very candid with you and tell you that that's disturbing to me, because many of those people were friends of mine on both sides of the aisle. And you have lost some great people intellectually. You lost some people that had some real common sense, and you had some people who had the ability to get some things done. And I think what I see and what I've heard, and I'll be very frank with you, I've talked to many of these folks on the phone that are leaving or intend to leave. And the frustration level became so great that they became anxious, and they became nervous about the next decision they were going to make in their position in public life. And it became too much for them to, day in and day out, be controlled by the leadership, whether it be from the executive office or from leadership. It was just too tough for them to continue on down that path when independently they represent people in their own district. They don't represent leaders in Springfield. So I think the fact that they couldn't get anything done, or if you will, it was like pulling teeth to do their job, was more than they could take.
You were in 6 years, was it, in the House?
Correct.
Everyone, it seems to me, that runs for the office, or typically, it seems to me, is going to have some area that they want to champion. It might be business, it might be medicine, it might be agriculture, but no one's an expert on all things. I mean, if you're a business background, you might say, I don't know agriculture, and if I'm voting on an ag bill, you're going to go along with what the party's telling you, and you trust that the people that know that issue are giving you the guidance to vote on something like that. But on the issues where you know, how much as a lawmaker are you told how to vote, and how much can you have the objectivity or the independence to vote the way you want to vote?
Well, that's a curious question, and I guess I'd have to divide my answer based on the years that I served. But I think for the first 4 years, I felt like I had a lot of latitude to vote my switch as I thought it should be voted for the constituents of my area. The last 2 years, which would have been 2016 and 17, that would be 2015 and 16, excuse me, I didn't feel like I had that much latitude. We had a battle royal going on between the executive office and the Speaker of the House, and that tended to force, or at least consider members, to consider what leadership wanted us to do. In other words, either vote this way, or if you don't, you will be in trouble with the Speaker, or maybe the Governor, or maybe the President of the Senate. And that's not only wrong to begin with, but it puts a great deal of pressure on individual members to do their job as they see fit for the constituents in their district.
As we are going just about to start the election cycle, it's coming up. We're about 14 months out from November of 2018, but then the primary is just coming up in March. How much money is involved? If someone thinks they want to run for the legislature, You can't go out and do it for $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000. What kind of money does one have to make?
You sure can't. And let me just paraphrase my answer by saying there's too much money involved in politics today. And I suspect if you go back, that answer might resonate in years past. But if you're thinking about running as a new person, trying to establish a new identity in a district that you've never run in before, you're looking at a bare minimum of $850,000 to $1 million. Now, granted, I'm in a marketplace that TV's quite expensive, but nonetheless, it takes more than the $100,000, which at one point in my life would have been a starting point if you wanted to run for office. But $1 million today is not uncommon. In fact, there was a primary not too long ago that ran upwards of $3 million. So that's a lot of money, and that's why I say it's too much money.
And where does that money come from? I mean, and I don't mean just from you know, and talking with others to make it more broad-based. How does someone raise, if you're not independently wealthy, how do you raise $1 million or more for a House seat?
Yeah, well...
And let me just say, too, how much of your time, even when you're serving, is spent raising money as compared to meeting with constituents or getting educated on some issue you're going to have to vote on?
Well, the rule of thumb, and I never use it, but I will tell you the rule of thumb is somewhere in the area of 33 to 40%. While you're serving, your time is spent raising funds to run in either the next primary or the next election, which I've always questioned the wisdom and the sanity of that, because when you're doing a job, you should go do your job. In terms of raising money, though, I lived in this district, and I ran from this district, which is 112th, and here people were very good because they were able to be very good to me. And so I was able to raise about a third of the monies that I needed, and then the rest of the monies that I had to have came from interest groups who thought that having a person with a business background would be good in Springfield.
When you talk to people, as you constantly do down here, as we said, from both your business standpoint as well as your background in government, a lot of people know you, and they know they're going to share their thoughts with you. As we look about a year out, as we say, to the governor's race, presuming Governor Rauner is going to be the Republican candidate, we don't know on the Democratic side, but do you have a feel for the election, how it might be going down here in the Metro East?
Well, I haven't heard any polling done, so I guess anything I have to say would just be mere speculation, but what I can tell you is that there is a general, and when I say general, I probably ought to just say it's deeper than it is wider, discontent with politicians in the state of Illinois. People on the street will tell you that they don't think politicians in Illinois have done their job. And that ranges from any person you talk to in business, any person that's just a stay-at-home mom, any teacher, any businessman. It's the wide range of people that live in Illinois believe that their state government has failed them, and not in a small way. Not in a small way.
Yeah, we just had, of course, the budget finally after 3 years, and that was only over the governor's overriding the governor's veto. Then we go into a prolonged battle over just funding education, which finally got done. But, of course, people didn't know if their schools were going to be, if they were opening, how long they could continue to run. So it causes some angst, I guess, constantly with people who have students.
Well, and you're right. Certainly no one would disagree with you. One of the things I always thought and still believe is that the purpose of being a public servant is to provide opportunity for people and security for people. And if anyone, at least in my view, thinks that we have provided security for the people of the state of Illinois, I think you'd be badly mistaken. And I think if you ask that to a man or a woman or even a high school child, walking down the street, whether or not they feel more secure today than they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I think they'd tell you no. I think they'd say no.
There's still a lot of money that's owed to different people around the state, hospitals, doctors, nonprofits, colleges, and so that's obviously some $15 million that's, or $1 billion rather, that's been pulled out of the Illinois economy that should have been circulating. Let's go to some business issues. If you were given a magic wand and could change the business climate to make it better in Illinois, what are some of the changes you would affect?
Well, first of all, for all of the criticisms that people make of Illinois, they have a great job force, they have great workers, we're strategically located, we're kind of the highway that's in the middle of the country, and everything leads through Illinois that has to go east, west, north, or south, so we have a terrific opportunity there. Our problem in Illinois is that we need to shore up our state government. We need to be credible. We need to be able to compete with other states for businesses that may want to enter Illinois. So what do you do? Well, I think there's a number of things that you can do, but we need to tackle some things that concern a Costco, as an example, who looks at Illinois and says, my workers' compensation costs are much higher here than they are in any other state I do business. So we need to take a look at that, and we don't want to say workers' comp's not important or we don't want to pay people. We just want to make the playing field a little more level. We need to be able to offer on a cost-justified basis incentives to business. Toyota, as an example, is considering Illinois as one of the potential locations, as a destination location for an assembly plant. That's 6,000 jobs, that's 2, possibly 3 shifts of building automobiles. That would be a big boost for the state of Illinois. Unfortunately, they're looking at 8 other states that are cheaper to do business in. Not necessarily cheaper to the worker, but cheaper to the employer. So we need to be able to look at those states, find out what they're doing, and, copy everything. Maybe some of it's not fitted to the state of Illinois, but there are some things to incentivize people to come here that we need to look at that those other 8 states have done.
How much, we often hear about taxation. We obviously just raised the income tax for Illinois, although if you compare it to the surrounding states, it's still relatively low. It's the property tax in Illinois that is, everyone has agreed that is hurting businesses and homeowners. We all feel that when we have to write that check. Is there a way that you have, in talking with other lawmakers, have thought about how you could bring down the property tax? What can we do about that, would you say?
Well, let's take a step back because that's an interesting question. When I was in Springfield, I found that very few legislators really understood how property tax formulas were constructed. And when you went to ask an assessor how they came to assess your house at a certain value, they were very vague in telling you how it was done. So first thing we need to do, I think, because our property taxes are per capita some of the highest in the nation, I think we need to roll them back, and I would say as far as 1%, and cap it, and then let the individual citizens within a county vote in a referendum to raise those taxes for specific needs they think are important to that community or county. We have, right now, in this vicinity that we're in today, Edwardsville, Glen Carbon, Collinsville, we have people that are talking about taking out equity loans to pay their property taxes this year. Whether it's the first installment or the fourth, I don't know. But the conversation is taking out an equity loan. And how concerning is that to you? It's very concerning to me. And I'm not in the General Assembly, but if I were, that would be issue number 1.
Yeah, you talk about trying to help the middle class, which is what gives America its stability, but if they're borrowing money not to invest in the stock market or put it in their retirement fund, but to pay their taxes, they're obviously not going to get any return on that investment.
Well, that's exactly right. And again, people, I think, were more upset, at least, and I've been to walking a few doors this summer, trying to get the flavor of the day from people and the concerns of the year from individual homes. And if there's any one issue that concerns people the most, it's property taxes. And the reason being is they can't figure out how they're going to make ends meet. When property taxes go up, as a general rule, you don't walk into your employer and say, oh, guess what, my taxes just went up $1,400, I need a raise. It doesn't work that way.
In business in general, as you talk to people and get the flavor, as you say, how's the economy doing down here in the Metro East area? And your business, you kind of, I think, get some input from other parts of the country, but just here as far as Illinois, are we improving, treading water, or declining?
Well, I think this area is treading water. Edwardsville as a city is doing extraordinarily well. It's growing and it's rebuilding and it seems to be prospering. I would not say the same for all cities throughout the district because they all have different concerns, or should I say issues that they have to deal with that maybe Edwardsville does not. I would say it's tepid. The economy is tepid at best compared to the national outlook. As a matter of fact, when you look at employment, Southern Illinois is 0.2% growth, which is the worst in the nation. I think the state of Illinois, the last reading was somewhere in the area of 0.9, which is the worst in the nation. So something, when you're that slow, when you're lagging behind everybody else, as we are when it comes to employing people, there's something not quite right in the business world.
And of course, I guess not having had the budget, and you got SIU Carbondale, or SIU-E, I should say, the campus here in Edwardsville, it doesn't help when you have a major employer going 3 years without getting their pay.
Well, of course not. I mean, they're a major driver in the economy here in Edwardsville, as it was in Carbondale, and it was so bad. And this kind of hurts to say, but here we have SIU Edwardsville loaning money to Carbondale so that Carbondale can continue to run. And we have a state government that's supposed to be providing for those needs. At least that's the way I understand it through the appropriations process. But we've got one loaning another money so that one can stay operative, and something is missing. Something didn't happen that should have happened.
As we close out, I presume you talked to some of your old colleagues in government, as well as the people in business. Over the next year or two, are you optimistic or not?
Well,
as far as things improving.
I'm always optimistic, but I will say this. People need to grow up, and they need to behave like adults, especially those people that are elected to office. They need to vote their own conscience in their own districts, and they need to do that now, not when somebody tells them to. They need to stay away from a lot of money in campaigns if they can do it. Ideas have always been better than money that sponsors ideas. So I guess my advice to these folks that are in Springfield is realize your responsibility and never deny your own experience or conscience, because if you do, you sold yourself out to the devil.
All right, Dwight Kay, we appreciate your time.
Anytime.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.